Good afternoon, everybody. We'll give a minute for everybody to get joined in, and Lauren, just let me know once we get enough people logged in. But my name is Brian with Anita Goodesign. I'm here to welcome you to another live stitch out where we're going to be going over a technique called heat and shrink, which isn't so much the technique, but the material we're going to be using to create the technique. So welcome to the class. I'm sure we have a lot of people returning who've been doing these live classes, and I'd love to hear from the people whose first time this is. Hi from Niagara Falls, or Niagara area, San Diego, Colorado, all over from the middle. Good morning. I apologize about the delay. Taylor used up all of our internet bandwidth shopping for shoes, so we finally got him off, and we're now ready to rock and roll. So I hope you are. So as you know, with these live stitch outs, we're kind of going to jump right into it just to get the ball rolling, and then we'll get into some questions. We'll go over techniques and more in depth on exactly what it is we're doing here today. But this is the heat and shrink design that we're going to be going over. And of course, we're working from our Embroidery Party Q1 2017 curriculum, which I taught way back when. So we're going to be starting on page 40 in the actual book. And again, welcome to everybody joining in. But we're going to be starting on page 40, and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of get this started by explaining exactly what it is, and then we'll get into more conversation here, just so we're not running too far behind. But essentially, we're going to be creating an applique today. And this applique is going to be using a special material called heat and shrink, which is exactly what it sounds like. What we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a quilt block, essentially. We're going to do some free motion or running stitches on top of it with this material inside and a base fabric on our no-show mesh. Then we're going to take it out of the hoop. We're going to steam it with our iron to create a shrunken applique, which I have an example of right here. Let me see if I can get a better, can you switch the other camera angle on that for me? We'll see if we can get you a better view there. There we go. So as you can see, just by creating the quilt block with the heat and shrink inside of the stabilizer, it's basically sandwiched between the stabilizer and the actual base fabric, with running stitches on top, when we steam it with the iron, that heat and shrink causes the fabric to shrink up around it, essentially creating a really cool effect that we like to use in our appliques, or sometimes as the base for our zipper bags. We have a lot of applications for them. So, to kind of dive right in, on page 40 of the actual curriculum is where we're going to start. Now, whenever we do heat and shrink designs, you're typically going to have one file that is going to be the master file for creating your heat and shrink. Sometimes you'll have several different running stitch designs. In this case, we're going to be using, on page 40, the design HS shrink, or H shrink 2, basically, is what it ends in. And today I'm going to be running the C size just to kind of get the point in and get it done a little quickly. But remember, you don't have to worry about keeping up with me. You can watch this over and over again. It will be there for you to pause, replay, etc. So just sit back, relax, stitch along. You don't have to worry about doing it at the same pace as I do. Or if you beat me, tell me in the comments. All right. So Lauren's gone ahead and set me up with my hoop. The materials list gives you what you need. We're using a no-show mesh stabilizer, which I'll talk about more once we get stitching. And today I am going to be running in a contrasting thread, just so you can see it. I know you guys like it when I do that, because I hear about it when I don't, because you can't quite see it on the camera. So we've got our thread done there. I've got the first design loaded. So this is 2 hoopings. Remember, we're creating that heat and shrink first. Then we're going to get into the actual application of it in the second hooping. All right, so with this, as I'm running the first step, which is the placement stitch, then it says place the heat and shrink after this step. Now, of course, in our tutorials, we have our number step pages, which is what I always recommend you start with. However, if you're brand new, you're always going to want to follow along with the picture steps as well, which we have starting on page 36 in that book. I recommend flipping back and forth between them if you want to page mark it or do one of our bookmark designs as well to keep tabs on that. So I've gone ahead and run the actual placement stitch there. Next, we're going to take our heat and shrink material. Once we do that, I'm going to refer back to the number steps. We're going to, again, just as step 1 said, we did the placement. Then we're going to place the heat and shrink. So we'll go ahead and put that down. I have a longer piece, but I'm going to obviously use as little as I can on that. And step 2, run the tack down stitch. So we'll go ahead and place the base fabric after this step. Now, what this is doing is just tacking it all together right now. And with the actual heat and shrink, it always reminded me of, whenever I taught this in class, of Shrinky Dinks back in the 80s, where we would color in this plastic material of whatever design it was. In my case, it was always Marvel and DC superheroes. And then we put them in the oven, turn on the heat, and they'd shrink on up. And that's pretty much what this reminds me of, except we're now taking this in fabric and causing it to shrink around thread that we use. So when you're using this heat and shrink, and you want to create kind of what I showed you here in the beginning, where it shrinks around those running stitches, you want to avoid using actual like fill stitch design, satin stitch. It needs to be more of a free motion or quilting stitch style of design to create that effect. All right. Once I get this next step on the running stitch, I'll go back and banter with you guys a bit. But I know we were running a few behind, so I just want to catch up here. So back to step 2, we ran the tack down stitch. Now we're going to place the base fabric. So we have our base fabric here. Mine's directional, so I'm putting it right side up. And since we're not using this in a quilt block, it's not as imperative that you actually have a 1/2 inch seam allowance, like we typically tell you to do. But once I place that, I'm going to run step 3, which is what I'm currently doing, which is the tack down stitch for my base fabric. So what you're learning here is not just how to do heat and shrink, but because our techniques are pretty much based on a few principles, somewhere around 16 or 17 different fundamental techniques. When you learn one thing, you're actually probably learning multiple different things that allows you to use and do any of our designs. Yes, Lauren, you have a comment?
Yes, they're questioning where they can get this design collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll be pinned in the
For sure.
conversation.
So, and this is a limited time, Lauren. I know you told me, but
Today's the last day of the sale.
Perfect. So very important. Today is the last day of this sale. You know that we typically don't put curriculums up for too long on the website. This one may be up there longer, but the sale is what's important. Because today, the 65% off, typically $99 for this entire curriculum, and don't worry, I'll show you everything else that comes in it when we're stitching, is now only $35. You see I did that math in my head, Lauren? 65 minus 100? So... So today, 65% off. It is going to be pinned in the actual comments below, but it's the Embroidery Party Q1 of 2017 on our website is where you can get that to follow along. You'll be able to see, and I'll show you, I have a whole pile of samples here to show you what else is going along with it. But if you do have the tutorial and you're just tuning in, right now we're on page 40 in that book. If you come back and watch this later after you purchase it, there's your reference for the page we're using. So to jump back in, and once I get this embroidery run going, we'll hop into some more questions and go into more detail on it. Right now, I've finished the tack down stitch, and I'm going to run step 4, which is the embroidery details. These are our running stitches that are going to help create that actual scrunchy type of aesthetic look to it once we take it out of the hoop and steam it with our iron. So again, I'm running a contrasting stitch on here just to show you guys exactly what it's doing. All right, and off we go with the 4th step, which is the last step for this file. We'll be taking this hooping out when we're done with it. But as I was stating before I get into questions, essentially, it just looked a little tight. I forgot we're doing the C size. What we're doing here is creating a quilt block. Even though it's being used for the heat and shrink to create an applique with a cool aesthetic look, the first steps we just did were practically no different than if you were creating a quilt block. And that's all I wanted to drive home to you, was that if you're new to this, there's very few techniques you need to learn to do everything that I'm not only going to show you from this book, but from all the thousands and thousands of designs on our website. So Lauren, what have we got in the comments section there?
We don't have any questions yet.
Oh, perfect.
People are excited about heat and shrink. It's new to them.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the actual heat and shrink, let me show you exactly what we're doing here. And I'm going to kind of hold this in front of the camera where it's stitching currently. So I don't know if it'll need to help focus it there. And I'll try not to let it fall into the needle. But you can see how after we take it out of this hooping, we are then going to use it as the actual applique for the flower, giving it that really cool scrunchy look, which is an aesthetic look you don't get without the heat and shrink itself. So it's just another fun way to add a different type of look to your designs. The heat and shrink itself, in terms of where to get it, we probably didn't put anything in this curriculum. I don't know if they did in the beginning. In the materials list, I'll glance real quick for you. But either way, you can always, and I would recommend first and foremost, check with your local dealers. Just give them a call, go into your store, whatever you're comfortable with. Ask if they have the heat and shrink. If they don't, see if they can get it, because you always want to support local first. If not, just Google it. You'll find heat and shrink out there. For embroidery, obviously, is what you want to search for. I'm not sure what type of other applications or industrial types of heat and shrink might be out there, but you want the kind that you can embroider on. In terms of brand names, no idea where we got this from, but whatever you're going to get is just fine. I've seen it all over the country. It all basically works the same for what we're doing here. Okay, so what we've just done is finished our quilt block, and let me hold it up for the camera a little better here. So you can see here, there we go. We've basically created a quilt block. Trying to get the right angle there. There we go. We basically created a quilt block. So we had our no-show mesh stabilizer. We put down our heat and shrink. We tacked it, which if it were a quilt block, it would just be our batting in that point. We then put down our base fabric. We tacked that down, which creates the base for a quilt block. And then we did our running stitch, which if you're doing a quilt block, you're going to be typically doing your quilting stitches or free motion, whatever it may be. And at that point in time, we're ready to pop this out of the hoop. Now, I'm not going to actually iron this here because it's pretty simple, but there are some very important things I want to tell you before you take yours to the iron, especially if this is brand new to you. First and foremost, I always recommend, especially if you have, some of you have irons that cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. Make sure that's on its own breaker separate from your machine so you don't have what we do at actual embroidery parties where we're constantly tripping breakers. But with this, when I cut it out and I take it over to the iron to shrink it, you do not direct press. You want to have an iron that can steam. If you have like a Loris iron, a steamer, whatever it may be, it doesn't even have to be an iron rather. Even if you just have a steamer, that's going to work just fine because it's the steam and the heat from the steam that is actually going to cause this to shrink up around the stitches, as you see there. So pointing it out, you can see how it's very important that when you're choosing a design to do the heat and shrink on, it just needs to be a quilt block with running stitches, either in a free motion form, kind of like we have here with that spiral free motion going out. It can be in a quilt stitch form, so it could even be stippling. But it should not be like, let me find an example here, and I'll tell you what this is later. Looking for examples. Except everything would work for this. Here we go. It should not be something like this rose where it's pretty much, fill stitches and satin stitches, etc. It's not, it's just gonna pull into it and look like it puckered. With those running stitches, it puckers in between the running stitches and creates that shrinking effect that a lot of you love if you've been doing our designs for quite some time now. So, what we're gonna do next is pick the design we want to apply it to. Now, it's important to note that I just did the C size. in my book. You'll notice in here when you're actually going through and you're creating the heat and shrink file that we had multiple sizes down here. We ran the C size. Yes, Lauren?
Will you explain that the heat and shrink is actually creating a textured applique, it is not creating a quilt block?
Yes. Yeah, so Lauren was making sure that I reiterated that this is creating an applique that we're going to use for this application. It is using the quilt block technique to create it, is what I wanted to point out there. Meaning you just learn how to use heat and shrink, but if you've never done our techniques before, you just learned how to make a quilt block. So now you can go in and you can make our quilt blocks. So we're going to learn how to do applique and that stuff, but I wanted to point out how simple it is to learn our fundamental techniques that apply throughout all of our designs. And quilt blocks are one of those. But we're going to be using this as an applique, which is why we've gone ahead and pulled it out of the hoop. We've steamed it, and now we're just treating this as a piece of fabric that we've prepped to use as applique. That's all that is from this point going forward. So thank you, Lauren, for reminding me to make sure I pointed that out. I go off on tangents, so please stop me. All right, so back to what I was saying was that with the heat and shrink, the file I chose to create it, this one right here, was the C size. And that's important because if I make the C size here, but I had to use it on an A size design file, it might not fit. It may, just depending, but I would always err on the side of caution. And if you're running the C size, which refers to the size hoop that you have, meaning this hoop range is for basically a 6x10 up to an 8x8. So the C size is for a 6x10, B would be for a 7x12, and the A size is for an 8x8 or 8x12, whichever you have. So that gives you options depending on what your machine is and what your hoop range is, or what you would like to do with the size itself. So we ran the C size for the actual heat and shrink design file. That means when I go in and I pick my actual design, I'm going to pick the C size as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get that loaded here. And in your materials list, it's going to point out while I'm getting this loaded. So this is at the beginning of the section, heat and shrink, right? We got our materials list here, no-show mesh stabilizer, hoop to fit, heat and shrink, base fabric, steam iron, tearaway. You don't have to use the tearaway. You can use no-show mesh twice. You can use the tearaway twice. It's just what we're recommending for this particular application. But for this, it won't really matter. So go back in here and get this one loaded. Okay. Now we're ready to rock and roll. So what we've done here is I know my materials list. When do I use what material? Because the number steps may not always specify exactly what it is. For instance, let me flip back to the right page. Let's see here. So yeah, on the steps it just says placement stitch. It doesn't tell you what to put down, which is why I recommend if you're new, you want to flip back and forth, like I said earlier, between your picture steps and the number steps.
Digital download. If they purchase the product, it is a digital download.
And for those of you asking, which Lauren sees some comments, it is going to be a digital download when you get this embroidery party, Q1 2017 at 65% off, which expires today at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Get that 65% off. It will be a digital download, which means if I'm getting you excited about this right now, you can go get it right now and start on it right now. Unless you don't have the heat and shrink. All right. So I've gone ahead and loaded the next file. We flip to the design that we want to use the heat and shrink on. And we're going to look at the first step here. It says placement stitch, then place heat and shrink after this step. Now what the picture steps will tell you is once I've gone through basically in the actual picture steps themselves, which shows you the technique, not the individual steps, A all the way through F is essentially what we just did. that creates the actual heat and shrink. The actual heat and shrink file. Shows you how to steam it and all that. G all the way through O is what's going to show us how to apply it. So right now I know that all the pictures going forward are going to refer to my number steps 1 through 12 with the file I chose, which is H-shrink4. So basically design file 4 out of this, and that's on page 41 as well. It's the bottom right corner flower I'm doing. All right, so once we get that loaded, make sure I have it all here. Okay. With the number steps, it says placement stitch, then place heat and shrink after this step. What this is it's telling us we're going to applique it. So let me get that running and I'll explain. Essentially with applique, it's going to be these same steps. So back to another fundamental technique. We're learning how to applique here. We're not just learning how to put heat and shrink in our hoop, because we created this using the fundamental technique of a quilt block with a special material, heat and shrink. We steamed it. Now we're going to use it as applique. So even though it's telling us to place our heat and shrink, what essentially this should mean to you is, nice Lauren, is that this is going to be applique technique. So what we've done first here, which, would you mind doing full screen on that for them? Just so I can zoom in here. All right, perfect. So what we've done here is we've run our placement stitch, which is step 1, which is the first step of any applique. It tells us to then place our heat and shrink after this step. Now you have a right and wrong side with this. The wrong side is if you can see your stabilizer. Right side is you can see your fabric. So we're going to place it right side up and make sure that we're covering our placement stitch, meaning that none of the seam allowance should be inside that placement stitch. The seam allowance meaning that square that's stitched, or which is also referred to as our squaring stitch when we're creating quilt blocks. Once I've done that, you can tape it if you like. I live dangerously, so I'm not going to tape it. But I would recommend either taping it or just gently holding while it just grabs so it doesn't push, because, and what I see at events happen when I've taught this before, the heat and shrink has a loft to it. Your presser foot may be set for just normal height fabrics. This is probably sitting up almost 1/4 inch in certain spots. So I would recommend either taping the corners or just holding it. If you hold it, I am not responsible if you don't move your finger in time for the needle, but just remember the needle only goes up and down. Only goes up and down. How many of you have had a needle through your finger? I have. I learned that the hard way. Lauren definitely has. I was there that day. She didn't make much noise. You took it, Lauren. So once we've placed our heat and shrink, we'll go and look at our tutorial book again. We're now on step 2, which I can see by on my machine. That is what step 2 is referring to, is the number steps on your machine. And if you need help with your actual machine's interface, that's where you're going to have to refer to your dealer. We're teaching technique in our software. A lot of you, there's tons of machines out there, so we're not going to go into the actual interface, but that's what the number step means, is the number step on the machine. Step 2 is the tack down stitch, and then trim your heat and shrink. So we'll go ahead and drop our presser foot and start that step. So what it's doing right now is it's just tacking it down. Pretty simple. But once it grabs enough, and it's mostly around, that's where usually I'll kind of let it do its own thing. Once it's done one full tack, it'll go back and do the second ply. All of our tack down stitches are a 2-ply stitch, just to really hold it down. But for this, once it grabs, I'll let go of it and let it go back around. You don't need to keep holding it if you were doing that in lieu of taping it down. But you will sometimes see movement depending on your machine and your presser foot settings if you don't actually secure it somehow. You kind of glanced, Lauren. Was there a question? No. Oh, okay. Sorry. Once we've run step 2, and this, something I'm doing, which I've done so far and I haven't pointed it out yet, every time I'm ready to move on to the next step, the first thing I do is glance back at the step I just did and reread it. So my machine tells me I'm on step 3. But sometimes you may have an embroidery run that goes for, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 minutes. You're going to forget if there was a second part to the previous step. So what I want to do is take this out of the hoop because I already know what I'm supposed to do. But if I look, step 2 said tack down stitch, which the machine just did. Then it says trim my heat and shrink. If I didn't go back and reread that step and I forgot that it told me to do that once the tack down stitch was finished, it's going to start stitching elements all on the area that you're supposed to trim. So it's always important to reread your number steps until you really understand the fundamental techniques, and you'll just automatically know. Applique, when it does the tack down stitch, you trim most of the time. Your tutorial book will tell you otherwise, and I'll kind of hop into why that might happen. So I'm going to trim most of it here, but I'll show you guys on the camera just because I can't trim where the camera is. But what I'm using to actually trim this, and what you'll find helpful, and I go over this in almost every class I do, every live stitch out I do, are what types of scissors do you like to use? For me, whenever it comes to any type of applique, I like using the double curved tip applique scissors. It's got a, there we go, give a better angle there. It's got a curve at the tip of the scissors, which allows me to get into intricate cuts. It has a curve on the handle, which keeps my hand from punching the actual hoop, which it does for me on smaller scissors. Again, that's just me. Some people prefer just using snips. Other people like the straight tips. I like the curved tips because when I'm doing really intricate cuts, like and having to get into these tight corners, the curved tips prevent me from punching all the way through the tack down, and it allows me to just clip where I need to. All right. So just cutting that out. Now, when I mentioned a moment ago that when we're trimming applique, that this is a fundamental technique. So when it comes to applique and the technique of it, you're always going to have a placement stitch showing you where to put your applique, regardless of what it is. Whether your applique is a special material like heat and shrink or mylar or, you name it, vinyl, anything like that, or whether it's just typical fabric, you're going to have a placement stitch. And that's something we do at Anita Goodesign, is give you a paint by numbers approach to quilting and embroidery. And what that does is it allows basically people from any skill level, beginner to intermediate to advanced, or maybe you've been quilting all of your life and you used to do hand piece quilts and you just wanted to try an electric embroidery machine because maybe you don't always want to do hand piece quilts. Whatever the case may be, our paint by numbers approach takes out the guesswork. It takes out more of the advanced skill set in terms of measuring and all of that, and allows you to create really beautiful designs with our digitizing. So if you can do a full screen on that for me. Thank you very much. So basically we've trimmed it up, and the dark purple is the actual tack down stitch. I tried to contrast it for you there. We've trimmed it all the way around, and we've trimmed it as close to the tack down stitch that you can get. You can't quite tell even if I held it up to the camera just because there's no reference point, but to kind of give you an idea, if you have more than 1/8 of an inch of fabric sticking out past your tack down stitch, that's too much. Because we're going to be, as you can probably see in the picture here, or even on this sample, we're going to be covering it with a satin stitch. If you have more than 1/8 inch sticking out, that satin stitch is not going to cover. So I usually get it to around 1/16 of an inch is usually what I'm happy with. It has less fibers sticking out and all that. But we finished trimming it up. Now I can go back to my machine, see that I'm on step 3 of 12, look back into my tutorial, and it's telling me dark purple, details around flower center. All the color is telling you is what we used. So in other words, when I used to write tutorials, we would either give a thread color number or just a general color. What it's mostly supposed to do, and things that really, this, you could use any colors you want. Any fabric, any colors that coordinate with it, or contrast if you want to be all over the place with it. All that's referencing is what to look for in the picture. So dark purple, details around flower center. So we're going to go ahead, and I've got dark purple. I'm just going to go ahead and use that. That way I don't have to rethread it yet. Okay, running step 3. Details around the flower center. And this is essentially just going to be those running stitch wicks coming off of the center of the flower there. All right, Lauren, any, let's see, what fabric can you use with heat and shrink? Laura, when it comes to the fabrics to use with heat and shrink, that's a very good question. 60-40 cottons, regular 100% cotton, perfectly fine. Honestly, I haven't really tried anything more than that. I can probably guess that flannels, heavier weight fabrics, fleeces, minkies, anything like that, probably isn't going to work out so well. Maybe it does. If you've tried really heavyweight fabrics or things with a lot of pile and loft to them and it's worked, let me know in the comments. I just don't picture it having the same aesthetic effect as a typical weight 60-40 cotton or 100% cotton even. But that type of thickness is what you're looking for, not necessarily the type of fabric, but the thickness. Also, to point that out, silk is about the same thickness-ish. I'm not so sure how that would hold up either. If you are going to try silk with this, which I haven't, I think we might have with our bags before, maybe?
Yep,
we did.
Silk Dupioni.
That's right, we did use silk Dupioni. I was like, maybe we did. We've only done hundreds of thousands of designs, so give me a break. But with that, I can tell you for a fact that they did use an interfacing on it. There's no way they're going to try to actually strain that silk with the heat and shrink without having a fusible backing. There's a lot of different kinds out there. You'll see that whenever you come across silk in any of our tutorials, we're typically giving you or recommending a interface, just an iron-on fusible backing. In the comments, let everybody else know what your favorite is, because I'm sure people love hearing all the different types that are out there. I'm kind of forgetting the kind that we used to use. I just don't know what we use anymore. But it used to be the 860 Pelline Ultra Fusible Weft, I believe. Something like that. Yes, Lauren.
Will you just remind them about the actual curriculum, that it was from an in-class event, it was never released anywhere else?
Yeah,
They're looking
absolutely.
For this design question.
For sure. So for those of you asking, this actual design set is only from this in-class curriculum. If you've been with us a while, you know that when we create class curriculums, it's mostly just going to be that curriculum. Sometimes we'll create like spin-offs or release it itself. So you can get this curriculum, which I'm going to show you more of what's in it here once we get on these longer embroidery runs, which is right about now. So let me get this started and I'll kind of dive in and tell you more about this curriculum. But again, these designs are only from the Embroidery Party Q1 of 2017, which is 65% off through tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. So make sure you hop on that sale. All right, so I'm going to get this satin stitch running because it's one of the longer steps, and then I'll kind of show you what else comes in this curriculum book for you, for those of you wondering before you pull the trigger. I know I'm on step 4 because of my machine. And step 4 in the tutorial is saying dark purple satin stitch outline. So essentially, that's going to be the outline to the entire flower, which you'll see if you didn't trim good enough on this, you'll know because you'll have a lot of fiber sticking out. And that's just a learning curve there. So if this is your first time really trying any of this stuff, don't use your best or rare or fabrics that you're low on for this. Always just start with something simple like scrap muslin or anything like that, and a little bit of heat and shrink, and just practice if you're worried about messing up. But I do recommend failing faster. It's the best way to learn. All right, going to go ahead and run step 4 here. Knock out that satin stitch. So, yes, Lauren?
Will you remind them that if they're just joining us, this video will stay on our YouTube
Yeah, absolutely.
Facebook page?
Absolutely. So for those of you who have joined in since I've been doing this, this video will stay on our Facebook page. So you basically got the class. This is yours, this video. It's not going to disappear. It's there for you to go back and watch as many times as you want to. So even if you get this book today and you get sidetracked with all the other wonderful designs that are in it, and you don't get to heat and shrink until months from now, it's still going to be up on our Facebook page for you to go back and watch and learn how to do with me. You can pause at any time. Even if you're having trouble following along right now, don't even worry about it, because as soon as this live feed is done, you'll be able to go back and rewatch it and pause and go right along with me. All right, so in terms of this actual curriculum, which honestly I barely remember doing. I remember several of these now that I'm looking at them, but not all of them. This has a lot of fun techniques in them, such as we have our ribbon applique blocks, and I'll just show you these sample as we go along with them. So we have our ribbon applique blocks, which was a lot of fun to do, just using different types of ribbon, and we either use organza or a tool as well to hold it down to create this. It even uses a, oh yeah, getting a little glare there. Thank you. Kind of zooming in there for you. Even uses a type of quilting stitch, which let me get a shadow on that. There we go. You can kind of see the echo stitching going around it, but that's essentially the type of quilt stitch we use on that. There's a bunch of different ones in that. We have one of technique that I helped R&D that Steve developed years ago with his magical digitizing, which is our radial blocks. And what these radial blocks do is it creates a folded fabric technique to create the radial pattern. Different radial patterns will have either more of that windmill look or less thereof it. But what's unique about it is that this is done in the machine, and what has been hard to do in machines is to replicate a paper piece or hand-stitched radial pattern, because you need a stop point. But you can't keep a folded edge on the machine in a radial pattern. So what we ended up doing to create this technique was we did our first piece of folded fabric, but we didn't actually tack it. We just put it down, ran our folding stitch, and then kind of kept it to the side. Did I break there? No, that's good. All right. I heard it. So we essentially kept our first piece there, and we did our folding stitch on it, and we didn't tack it down. And what we did is we actually did the rest of the folded fabric all the way around. Then when we got back to that first piece, that's when we tucked it over and ran that decorative folding stitch again on top of it, creating the folded fabric look going all the way around. So that way you can't tell where this started or stopped. There it is, now it broke. Basically creating this radial pattern, which is a lot of fun because the more you combine the blocks, the more of a kaleidoscope effect you get doing that radial pattern, which some of these have up to like 22 folds in them. They look really intricate and a lot of fun. Thank you. I'll get it out of the bobbin case. So how many of you have broken needle up to this point?
Do you want to give away a prize?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Let's do some prizes. Lauren, what can I give away today?
Let's do a $20 virtual gift card to the website.
$20 virtual gift card to the website. So first prize, once again, a $20 virtual or digital, whichever way you want to phrase it, gift card to the website. It's virtual. You're not actually going to get it. And the key word is going to be shrink. Shrink is the key word. Just type that into the comments. We're going to let that run for a minute, and then Lauren will pick a winner and let me know who that is, and we'll send you that $20 digital gift card. Shrink is the key word. All right. While you guys are typing all that, I'm going to find the missing broken needle, which unfortunately, Lauren, it might be deep down in the bobbin abyss. Well, I might need it. Oh, never mind. This is the newer machine. Forgot which one I was on. Oh, wait, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Nothing to see here. Definitely don't show them what I'm doing to this machine. Let's see here. So to point out what I am doing, if you ever do have a broken needle and you pull your needle out and there's half of it that came out of the actual needle holder, but I don't see the other half of it, you want to find the other half of it. Oh, wait. Nope, that's the staple. Can I get a small Allen wrench set? It's the hexagon tip. I don't know.
Were you sure the whole needle didn't come out with the stitch out?
I don't see it, but we'll know when I start stitching again.
Oh. I bet you.
Worst case scenario,
I bet you it's okay.
we just switch machines and I break this one.
Do you want to say Lori Walters for this?
All right, so the winner for the first digital gift card giveaway of the event is Lori Walters. Lori, go ahead and email us at customerexperience@anita-goodesign1d.com. Let us know you were the winner and we'll send you that digital gift card for $20, which essentially means you get this for basically 85% off if you haven't bought it yet, or you get to spend it on other goodies as well. All right. We're just going to go ahead and try it. Maybe it's not in there. Maybe it bounced out. Maybe it's just sitting in a spot where nothing bad will happen. Or maybe I ruined this machine. Only time will tell. Don't worry, I've ruined worse.
Do you want to tell them about your flash sale?
Yes, I do. Let me make sure I don't hear any bad noises real quick. And I'll tell you about the flash sale we got going on as well. All right, so real quick after I broke that needle, there's a few satin stitches I can see that didn't cover, so I'm just going to back it up about 20, 30 stitches and try again. And what I'm listening for is clackety clack clink clink. And we're good. There's none of that. Oh, there it is. Yep. So if you just grab Stefano, he'll have the actual tools. I can pop this guy out. So while we're getting that fixed, I'm going to tell you about the rest of this book as well as our flash sale. As soon as I can get this presser foot up. All right. So anyway, our flash sale is for fall fasteners, which I'll hold up on this camera for you. Now, this technique, which we essentially just learned the basics of it, which is applique. So all you're doing is doing that placement stitch, picking your fabrics, putting them down, tacking them into place to create the actual base fabric. Yeah, actually, if you want to do that close up there, that would be perfect. To create these guys. That goes for the topography as well as the actual applique itself for the straw man there. Oh, yeah. So you can see that we have a lot of different fun buttons attached to it as well, which I'm going to go ahead and switch this actual machine out real quick. And those really fun buttons, which I know many of you have a button drawer at home where you have the miscellaneous buttons that you can never find anything else to do with. That's where this collection is going to come in handy, which, is it directly on the machine? It was on ESP. You got it. All we're doing here is switching out machines. And if you're ever at your dealer's and you're like, I already have a machine, I don't need another machine, this is why you need more than one machine. That way you never have to stop.
Hi, everybody.
Ignore the woman behind the curtain. I love your shirt, Lauren.
Thank you. Green?
Yes. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get this up and running.
Should be good. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. All right, so anyway, back to that flash sale is Fall Fasteners, which is that was a mini collection, right, Lauren?
Yeah.
It's a mini collection that we released. Typically was $34.95, is now $17 on sale. Has way more than what I'm just holding up with this small sample, but a lot of fun. It gives you marking stitches showing you where to place these actual buttons to add as an aesthetic effect. But go onto our website, type in Fall Fasteners, you'll be able to see a lot more about it. What's that? Oh, perfect. Yeah, she's going to throw that into the comments as well, so you can look for it pinned to the top, either during or after this live feed. And so what we're doing here, typically if I was at an actual event and we broke a needle, what we would do is actually take the bobbin case off, find the other half of that needle, and fix it. But because we're alive, I just broke the machine and then swapped it for another. So I haven't taken this out of the hoop because we swapped it for the exact same machine. We have a few because we write tutorials on these. So we have plenty to go around. But what's good about that is that when I put this hoop into the next machine, as long as I didn't actually move the design file when I put it into the hoop, it's going to be in the exact same spot when I put it in. Different machines have different features, like some will be able to go back in with a camera or scan if you have something pop out of the hoop. This didn't pop out of my hoop. It came in dead center. And let me get that back for you. How is that? Is that good?
Yeah.
Perfect. It was dead center when I brought it in. So because it's still in the hoop, it's going to be dead center when I bring in this file again. Because same machine, using the same hoop size, and nothing's come out of the hoop. So pretty convenient. Again, why it's helpful to have multiple machines. And I'm not here to sell machines, by the way. Just saying it helped us out today. All right, so I'm setting that. Now, one thing is like, all right, that just happened. Or what if you have like a blackout or a brownout and your machine turns off and turns back on? A lot of them have a recall feature. Again, this is not brand specific. If they're newer, they typically will have a recall feature, which check with your actual dealer about, because that means if you turn your machine back on, it'll ask if you want to recall to the same exact design. It'll bring you to the exact stitch you were on, which is helpful. I wasn't there. So, that's not my case, rather, because we just swapped machines. But I do know I was on step 4. And now, all I'm going to do is my needle is basically pointing to the stitch where I should be. So I'm just going to use my actual fast forward, which most machines have, especially the new ones all have that, where I can just skip ahead by stitch count. So I'm just skipping ahead until I see the needle is pretty close to where I want it to be, which is about right there. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue with this. Let me thread that needle. I'll go back to telling you more about the actual curriculum that we're stitching from here. And I know you guys love seeing it when things are normal and stuff doesn't go right when you're stitching, such as me not being able to thread the needle on this. But this happens to us all the time, even here, when we're running the machines. So if you ever have issues with yours, don't feel like you're alone, because these things are extremely high tech. They're doing things that was once not even thought possible. Oh, I guess the automatic threader's not working. And that can sometimes create for complications, such as the complication of me stitching on, look at that, that's the table. That's going to cause needle breaks. So we're not on an actual embroidery table. Just like at events, if you've been to events before, you know, oftentimes the dealers don't have like 40 or 20 or so embroidery tables to use for the event. We're oftentimes just on fold-out tables. And what that causes is it causes the bouncing from the needle to go into the table, and then that vibration feeds back to the machine and causes the timing to be off, and will eventually lead to what you're seeing right now, which is perfectly fine. Let's see if I can get it in there. Almost. All right. Let me cut it one more time. And this is me not using the automatic needle threader, or tweezers for that matter. It's all using the force. All right, there we go. I don't know why I just did the automatic needle threader. It's just habit. Okay, so let's see if we can get this to continue here. Make sure I was actually in the same spot and that it's lined up. Yeah, all right. So now we're back on track. You can see that good in there. Okay, perfect. So as I was pointing out, it is handy, especially if you do have something go wrong with the machine, don't pop your design out of the hoop, even if you have to restart it. This is also why I don't like bringing in a design file and moving it up or down in my hoop. Just get the hoop that you want to use that's closest to the size of the actual file, because what that's going to do is when there is a problem, and you may have an older machine without a recall feature, you might not have a camera or you might not have a projector, which you can go in and see your dealer about one, then you'll be able to just pop the hoop right back in, and when you bring in the file again, it's going to center it automatically in the hoop. So that's very handy. I usually don't rotate or anything. When I bring the actual design file in, that's where it is in the hoop for me. And that's one of the reasons why is I've had to do that a lot. So anyway.
We can do another giveaway.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I go into more detail about this, Lauren is telling me give away more stuff. Who would like more prizes? Oh yeah, thanks. Woo! So we're going to do another $20 digital gift card to use on our website. It's good for any retail product on there. This keyword is going to be, let's see, party. Type party in the comments. We'll pick your name. You get $20. Party is the keyword. So back to the actual book itself. For those of you who just got this and you're wondering what all comes in it, or you're getting it, with our actual curriculums, you're learning a variety of techniques in here. It's nice seeing the comments just scroll rapidly with everybody saying party, party. So some of the other actual techniques in there that you'll learn, aside from the ribbon, the radial block that I showed you, is a couple other types of quilt blocks, such as the printed fabric block, which I have down here. This technique I also helped develop, which was a lot of fun, probably 6 years ago or so, where you basically take some pre-treated fabric that is pre-treated for it to be printed on in an inkjet printer. You take our file. It's basically just a Adobe file, like a PDF or a JPEG or whatever we put it on there on, rather. You print that off and then use it in the actual, as the actual base fabric, and it lines up perfectly with our squaring stitch, so that when we do embroider on it, such as, let me see, you mind zooming in on that guy for me? Such as the hummingbird is the actual stitching. Everything else on here is what we printed. So we got it to actually drink the nectar from the flower just by using our placement stitches and our intentional image designs that line up with the embroidery. So that's how we use a printed fabric. We use it in a variety of ways. What's that?
Drea did a video on that one.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so Drea, one of our other educators who runs a creative department, also did a technique on this as well. So go to our YouTube page also. We'll put that in the links in the comments. Yes, Lauren?
We have our winner.
Oh, we have a winner for the prize.
It's Diana Dugan.
Diana Dugan, you are the winner. Congratulations. Email us at customerexperience@anita-gooddesign.com. Let us know you're the winner and we'll send you that $20 gift card. All right. So I'll keep showing you more about this as we get along into stitching. So what we've done is we've gone ahead and run our satin stitch finally. One machine later. And what we're going to do is look back at our number steps. I see them on step 5. Go ahead and flip back to my number steps in the actual tutorial here, which was page 41. And that says tan center of flower. Now I can look at my picture and see that's basically doing a either a randomized satin or a fill stitch in the middle there. So this is where the colors don't matter for you. You can use whatever you want. I'm using whatever I want. So I'm just going to put the white in there. One of the most common questions I get is when you see us recommend a color, then you have to change that color, then you have to put that color back in. You're like, well, Brian, why didn't you just sort the segments to where I could just keep that color the same and not have to take it in and out? We layer on embroidery a lot of times, or there may be aesthetic reasons, or sometimes there may be a reason that you have to put an applique down or something and swap the color out. So there are reasons why we do that, or you may not even be using our colors, so it wouldn't even matter. Oh yeah, I forgot. Needle threader. So with this next step, all it's doing is the details on the center of the flower. And what's important to know is that this is what makes the digitizing awesome, is because you're not having to do anything but change your thread here, possibly repair a machine, depending on the table you're using. But it makes it all very, very simple to have a beautiful design when you're finished. All right, so we're running step 5 for those of you following along right now or later. And back to the actual Embroidery Party curriculum, which again, 65% off through 11 p.m. tonight, Eastern Time. Embroidery Party, Q1 2017. We've got it pinned to the top of the comments as well, so you can just click a link. Some of the other stuff we did in this Embroidery Party back in 2017 was our trapunto block as well. This technique is going to be really hard to see on camera, but what we're doing is when we do our base fabric, we, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. We essentially do our base batting, then we do a placement stitch for our applique before we put down any fabric. And it's going to be hard to see how it lofts up on camera, but the entire flower has extra batting underneath it to create a puffy or trapunto look to it. And this creates a really cool effects. We've even used really thick polyfill in some of the different techniques, but that requires special digitizing because of your presser foot. And that just creates a lofted look to the applique itself. A lot of you know trapunto from being quilters or just hearing it from you know, either groups or guilds you may have been in or family members, friends, etc. So that's a fun technique to learn as well. Embroidered cards is one of the favorites. So all we're doing with this, and again, everything I'm showing you is in the curriculum. You can order that we're stitching this technique from. But embroidered cards uses just standard card stock, plain card stock you can get from basically anywhere. Check with your dealer, look online, etc. But as a placement stitch, we put a base fabric down in the appliques, running stitches, etc. to create these unique looking cards there that you can personalize and do yourself. Because I know a lot of you like to say that not everyone is quilt worthy. So when you're making a gift for people, especially around the holiday season, you're not going to go out there and make everybody a queen size quilt. But stitching out a bunch of cards that only take 30 minutes each to stitch out is a much better way to personalize the gifts you give this season without weeks of effort. All right, so we've run the center of the actual flower. You don't have to zoom in on that, that's okay. But we've just run the center. That was step 5. We're on to step 6 now, which going back to page 41 is light purple, outline of flower center. I can look at my picture, and that's where these keywords in your steps are pointing you towards, is I can look and see, oh, okay, so it's going to basically do that satin stitch going around the center of the flower that we just did this fill stitch in. So you can do it in whatever color you want. I'm going to continue to do mine in white. Maybe I want mine to be tonal in the center. Maybe I just don't want to change my thread. Okay, so other fun techniques in this book that you'll get to learn. The free motion block. So you'll actually get a lot of designs that use free motion themselves, which I'll show you right here on this camera. So just standard free motion, which is kind of what we use to create the actual heat and shrink itself. Basically, this can also be used as heat and shrink, but when you're using something that's not in the tutorial for heat and shrink, you have to keep in mind that you're not going to use batting, and you're going to basically, in lieu of batting, use heat and shrink. But you can use any free motion designs that will shrink up around those running stitches. Any stippling, anything like that is going to be perfect for heat and shrink. But this is another technique, just standard free motion you get. And what's cool about our free motion is that it starts and stops on the same horizontal line, or vertical, depending on the design file, that when you attach the next quilt block and the one thereafter, creates continuous free motion like you would typically see if you did it yourself by hand. So another fun quilting technique in there for you. Next up in the book, we have some of our freestanding techniques. Freestanding is a lot of fun. And it's just like it sounds. I'm going to create embroidery that, when I'm finished, is essentially going to be freestanding. Got very creative with that name. But it's pretty on the nose. Means exactly what it says. We have a lot of different collections that utilize this. Even the Stephen Wilson Signature Series 2 that came out with the butterflies, those are all freestanding butterflies. We have numerous other collections throughout the years, designs, etc., that utilize freestanding. This dragonfly is freestanding. So all you're doing is stitching it on like a water-soluble or a tearaway, so that when you're done with it, you remove it and you have your actual file. Same thing with our, you find them here, 3D flowers. This uses multiple hoopings of different freestanding flowers that we do in the first hooping. We set them aside, and then there's a marking stitch in the actual next hooping that shows you exactly where to place each petal. So it tacks them all together, does a finished stitch in the center bud, giving you a flower you can put on your shirt, your hair, anywhere. Next we have step 7, which is going to be on 41, are green leaves going around the edges. So I'll go ahead and swap that up for some green so you can see it stitching out. And Lauren, there is one thing I did not do. But it'll be fine. For those of you in the comments, what did I not do? I did not put down a base fabric to stitch this flower on, which would be fine if I didn't have free elements going off the edges. So either way, make sure before you actually do anything with this that you do put down a base fabric. If you're following along with me, you could stop now and just tear out the flower and use it as freestanding.
You can do that and then show them our finished product.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't you just
Oh yeah, I'm not going back. So just to point out to those of you following along or watching in the future, this is the point in time where you go, Brian, I just spent a lot of time doing this. But that's okay, because now you have a freestanding flower you can just take out at this point and not worry about those other elements. But for those of you actually paying attention to your book, as I should have with the picture steps, make sure you're actually putting this on something, not just the stabilizer that tears away. But I'm still going to run these steps for you anyway. So we'll go through and do our next step 7, which is the green leaves. So these are embroidered elements going around the flower, which you can see here are going outside that satin stitch. Now, let me hold it over here for you. So you can see those little embroidered elements going outside the satin stitch for the flower design itself. Those are not going to do anything on your actual tearaway. When you go to tear out the flower, they're useless. So if you got this far without a base fabric, congratulations, you have a freestanding flower. Go ahead and tear it out, put it on something. Tack it down to a quilt block, put it on a bag, use it as a patch. If you have a hole in a shirt or jeans, I just made you a patch. You should thank me. All right, so as that runs, some of the other fun things that we have in this book for the Embroidery Party Curriculum, Quarter 1, 2017, available on our website, 65% off through tonight at midnight Eastern Time, is going to be, and I know a lot of you, when I did this class, loved our cutwork techniques. And I'll open up the towel so you can see all the way through. We did this one on an actual tea towel where you can see the actual cut work is all the way through. Traditional cut work or even lace work oftentimes will cause your hand to cramp up looking at it, but if you're doing our cut work, it's either going to be larger holes that are easy to cut out, and then if it's a more intricate design through the actual holes, we're typically doing that on a water soluble, and we're going to be using like satin stitching to create those more intricate cuts. So this one itself just had 6 different cutouts for the leaves, and then other embroidery to go around it, which you can do on the tea towel, a shirt, any garment you want. But if it's more intricate cut work of ours, our digitizing makes it to where you just cut out a bigger hole and let the embroidery fill in all those other additional cuts. Also in the Embroidery Party Curriculum, you have these really fun wooden hoop designs, the different sayings and stuff like Hello Spring. There was other ones on New Beginnings, etc. Lots of different sayings you can do and put in a hoop and hang up. And of course, zipper bags, because what would any curriculum be without zipper bags? I don't think I've ever done a curriculum where I haven't taught a zipper bag, because everyone loves zipper bags. So those are a bunch, and not all, but a bunch of the different techniques you're going to learn. Even springtime pals, where you make these little stuffed birds here. So a lot of different fun techniques you're going to get from this, not just the heat and shrink design. So now we're on to step 8, which is going to be the smaller pink flowers here. And again, if you're following along, we're just going through the embroidery steps that are useless for me now, but I know some of you are going to want to follow along with me. So I'm going to keep doing them after I get this thread unhinged. There we go. So let's do another prize here for another $20 digital gift card. The keyword I want you to type in the comments is, I can't think of one, scissors. Type scissors in the comments. That's how it comes to you. Maybe it's in your hand. Scissors in the comments. We'll pick a winner for another $20 digital gift card you can use on our website. And again, for those of you who have one, or if you do win, just remember to email customerexperience@anita-goodesign.com. That way we can get that sent out to you. I keep forgetting this doesn't work. There we go. So how many of you have used heat and shrink out there? Let us know in the comments, because we've done a lot of different designs over the years with this, and it's been a lot of fun to see at events. All of you like bringing in your show and tell and stuff to show off of what you've been doing at home, for us to see, whether it's our designs or somebody else's. Either way is fine. I just enjoy seeing what everyone does when I go to all these events and learning from other people as well. All right. There we go. Okay. Make sure I didn't get that too caught up. All right, now we're back off here. We have a winner for that gift card?
One more minute.
Okay, I'll give you another minute to type those comments. I know there's a little lag, so want to make sure anybody's a little bit behind gets a chance to type. But just to remind you guys, with Fall Fasteners, I didn't even say that right, Fall Fasteners, which is our flash sale, this is where we do different appliques and fall designs, either the appliques to create the sayings or the characters themselves. But what's fun about it is being able to do marking stitches and utilize a bunch of random buttons, whether they coordinate with fall like ours, or whether they're just random ones you have no idea what to do with, which I'm sure a lot of you have. This collection, Fall Fasteners, is one to check out. 50% off from today through September 5th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time.
We have our winner.
We have our winner.
It is Eileen Kellerstedt.
Eileen Kellerstedt, you are our winner. Email us at customerexperience@anita-goodesign.com, and we'll get that gift card on out to you. All right, so we're going over step 8 right now, which is just the small flowers. Again, we're just doing those embroidered elements outside of the flower, which if you're doing at home and you're going this far, make sure you didn't do what I do and you put it on a base fabric, which you can just float in there, is perfectly fine. So what else I want to talk to you about, and this is for those of you who either may be new to this or you may not know, but there's a way to get everything we create every single month going forward, and that is our All Access Club membership, which is essentially a 12-month membership with us. And you may have been on our website, you may have seen that every single month we show you what we're releasing that month. There isn't a month that goes by where we don't have releases, which we would hear about if we did. But every month we release a lot of different collections, such as in September we had, is it September? Yeah, tomorrow. We have a bunch of different standard embroidery. We have different quilting collections. We have projects. We have a very large release, which you'll see I did a video on, so you can check out our website to see more about that large release as well. But point being is we have a lot of different collections come out every single month. And what our All Access does for you is instead of having to buy each and every one of these individually at full price, or even say you get it for 50% off, that's not as good as you get with our actual club membership. For those of you following along, I'm going to go ahead and move on to step 9, which is the stems. My stems are pink. So what essentially the All Access does is you get everything we release every single month bundled together for a minimum of 80% off. Now there's several ways to sign up for this. We'll post a link to our website to where you can check it out, or you can give us a call to sign up for All Access today. But it starts at either $116 a month is what it breaks down to for a 12-month subscription, or $1,400 for the year. And basically that gets you close to $8,000 a year, which is at least 80% off. And you get a $1,400 digital gift card you get to spend immediately, which means if you sign up for a 12-month subscription, you get a $1,400 gift card for the $1,400 you just gave us for an entire year. And every single month going forward, you get a fully printed book with that one. You also get the digital download and every single design collection with every single design we release every month through your subscription. We have other ones that you can do as well. For those of you following along, step 10, blue dots. Mine are going to be pink. And basically, we have our full membership, which gets you that gift card. Again, $1,400 for the year, 12-month subscription. You get every single new retail collection we come out with. We have our one that's only $999 for the year, but there's no free gifts, which is great for those of you who have been with us since 2004 and have literally every single thing we've come out with, and you don't have anything to pick online. I understand. And then, of course, there's our digital option, which is no physical book, but you get the digital only download for the tutorials. So you still get all the tutorials in the book like this. That's fully interactive, which you can watch on YouTube. We have videos for that as well on how all that works. but you still get everything we release every single month, and that's $4.99 for the year. So 3 different ways to sign up for a year's membership of All Access to get a minimum of 80% off, which is better than any deal we offer on our website for retail discounts. So that is one way to sign up, so you can build your library starting today, or basically September, going forward. Likewise, if you end up doing that club option that comes with the free gifts, you can also use it to get the embroidery party curriculum. Even though it may not be on sale by the time you get your digital gift card, you still have a gift card you can use to get it. So typically $99 on sale today, 65% off at $35 through 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. So hop on there and get it. Again, we have all those links posted for you in the comments. So what we've done here today, just to kind of recap, as this is rounding out the last couple steps of embroidery, is we started off with our heat and shrink material, right, which is what I went over in the beginning. This is what you put in the actual base block that we created, that when you steam it with the iron, again, very important to note, but as I'm going over that, I know this is a slight tangent, but I want to point this out. In step E, in the picture steps, it goes over how to use your iron on the actual heat and shrink. So if you want a little more detail, or you want to just see a picture of it, you can look in there. We are using a steam iron on that that works really well. The Laura Star one is what we kind of have in that picture, but any iron will work. I recommend steaming. If you're trying to press something while you're trying to get it to shrink up, it's going to look a little funny. So just steam it. No direct contact is my recommendation on that. I'm going to move on to step 11, just continue in pink. You can tell I love changing threads without an automatic needle threader. So again, step 11 was just doing more of the elements. If you're following along on the number steps, it doesn't matter which one you're doing, whether it's the third file or fourth file, the technique is the same. So with this one, the one we did down here, all it's doing is that applique for the heat and shrink and the embroidered elements. For the one before it, which is Q1178 shrink 3, same thing, applique, you put down the heat and shrink that you made, and then you do the embroidered elements. So once again, what you've learned today is not just what heat and shrink is and how to use it. You've learned how to create your own unique applique. So we created our applique with this heat and shrink that I then put into the actual file to create the item that I misplaced right here, to create the flower that's currently stitching out with the heat and shrink applique in it. But we learned how to make a quilt block, because the fundamental technique is, you do your place and stitch. Instead of heat and shrink for a quilt block, you would put down your batting, and I would tell you in the tutorial how to do that. But same principle. Then we put down our base fabric, tacked that down. Then we ran any stitching, etc., that goes along with it. So if you were to get that book, the Embroidery Party Curriculum, to make this heat and shrink and to make this free motion quilt block is the same fundamental techniques. It's just this is using batting in it instead of heat and shrink, and this has heat and shrink instead of batting. And with that heat and shrink, once we finished, you just trim off the extra fabric outside of that squaring stitch, steam it with your iron to get that really cool effect. Again, reminding you to use things that only have running stitches in it if you're not using the files we provided in your book. And then we used it as an applique. So all heat and shrink is, to recap, is using that special material with a running stitch quilt block file that we then shrink up to create an aesthetic look that is unique to heat and shrink. So I want to see what you guys do with it. I'm going to run this last step, 12, which is again just the light purple dots, which I'm going to do in pink, if you haven't guessed already. And then we just use this into the next hooping, which was the base for our flower. Now, again, as I pointed out halfway through this, if you're going to be running this, this is just a file. We have no idea what you're doing with it. And what I did, which is what I typically tell you guys not to do, I did not flip back to the picture steps. So I just strictly read from the actual number steps themselves. But essentially, you're going to want to skip back and make sure that you're putting something down that this is going to go on. I literally just ran it on stabilizer only, which would be fine since I ran it on my tearaway if I weren't going to be planning on running all the embroidered elements that are outside that flower, because I could pop the flower out and use it as a patch or a freestanding item, which is probably what I'm going to do. But you can actually put this on anything you like. You can bring in a quilt block from any of our 1, 2, 3 collections. If you sign up for All Access, you'll have plenty of stuff down the road you can use. Even things from the actual curriculum itself. Other quilt blocks you can bring in. Tea towels, anything like that, you can add this to. It's just an applique. And that's the other part of what you learned today as a fundamental technique is how to applique. Because once we created the first file, that heat and shrink, it's just applique. And as you can see, we've appliqued it to our stabilizer, but you would have appliqued it to something awesome, which I want to see, whether that's a garment, whether that's a quilt block, or whether you did exactly what I did and embroidered it directly under stabilizer. Be sure to show us. All right, so once again, you can watch this video later on. It's going to be pinned there for you. Any of the actual flash sale information I gave you, which is good through September 5th. Again, that fall fasteners, 50% off on our website, good through September 5th, starting right now. As well as the Embroidery Party Curriculum, Q1 2017, which is 65% off through tonight, which has the heat and shrink, as well as all the other stuff I showed you inside of it. You'll be able to go back and watch. So thank you for stitching along with me. Once again, this is Brian with Anita Goodesign, and we'll see you at the next live Stitch Out.